Welcome to Meditation 101 weekend course. So tonight we have 2 hours here tonight, and then for Saturday and Sunday it will be start at 10:30, okay, and run until 4 o'clock. And Geshe Legtsok will also lead the Sunday drop-in meditation as well at 9 o'clock. But for folks online, the drop-in meditation is in person only, so we won't have the Zoom component. Okay, and for this course, Geshe will guide you through different types of meditation. But I don't think I should talk about this because Geshe will probably go over it. But instead, I will introduce you to Geshe Tenzin Legtsok. Sometimes we call him Geshe-la, and people ask me, what Geshe-la? So I had to explain, so I'll explain why sometimes we call him Geshe-la, because in Tibetan tradition, we add la as an honorary thing, like venerable. I think in English it would be Venerable Geshe Tenzin Legtsok, right? Or maybe not. Maybe that's not
be a bit
what
much.
la. That's a bit much.
Yeah.
Okay. But we like the sound of saying Geshe-la.
No, that's in Tibetan. That's the la is honorific.
Honorific,
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Just in case anyone curious. So Geshe Tenzin Legtsok has been ordained as Buddhist monk since 2001 and is the first American to complete a 20-year Geshe studies program in classic Indian Buddhist treatises and their Tibetan commentaries at Sarajay Monastic University in South India. And in case you don't know Sarajay, at least I like to say it's like a Harvard or say Stanford of the monastic university. Okay. And in 2025, early this year, he completed a traditional study of Tantra at Gyome Tantric Monastery. And with over 2 decades of study and practice under the guidance of great masters, including His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Kapje Lama Sopa Rinpoche, who is one of the founders of our FPMT organization, Geshe Legtsok brings profound insights into the application of Buddhist teachings. Born in Virginia in 1973, he earned a Bachelor of Arts from Kenyon College. And I think I have to say that he majored in philosophy. So the question, what makes for the most happy and meaningful life, led him to major in philosophy, eventually guiding him to study meditation and philosophy with teachers among the exiled Tibetan communities in India and Nepal since 1999. So Geshe Legtsok is now a resident teacher for Ocean of Compassion, as well as all of our sister FPMT centers in the Bay Area. So we are very fortunate and feel very honored to have him guide us and teach us, and especially for this weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, Benya. So welcome everyone to this kind of it's like a retreat actually for the whole weekend. No, we're together for the whole weekend if you can come to all the sessions. So this course called Meditation 101, it's named after, I was told, because this is in FPMT, it's like the Introduction to Meditation course. And I guess in U.S. Colleges and universities, naming a course 101 is like known means it's the introductory level thing. But in other countries, they don't have that system. So when they use this title for this course in other countries, people don't know what it means, so they have to name it something else, no? Feature of the U.S. academic system, but that's what it's named after. So this course is, this is short. It's basically 5 2-hour sessions, right? The first one tonight, and then one tomorrow morning, one tomorrow afternoon, another Sunday morning, another Sunday afternoon. So 5 sessions, 2 hours each. So each session I'll explain something about meditation, and we'll do some meditation together, at least once, maybe a couple times in a session. and then we'll have time for discussion, question and answer. Yeah, and maybe also have like some breakout into pairs or discussion groups to compare experiences with other peers in the group. And then there's a set of, not really readings, but most of the meditations we'll do, there's also like, description of how to do that meditation. There's a handout, so we'll send those to you by email also. So then, in the days or weeks following this course, if you'd like to, on your own, practice some more of the meditations that we do, then you'll be able to have the resources to do that. So if there's anyone who hasn't registered already yet online or given, and then therefore we have your email address, then make sure to do that, although it's not necessary. Yeah, very happy to be with you. I've taught how to meditate a lot, but in a way I never get tired of it because it's something I've found so beneficial for myself. I first learned about meditation in college. I think my second year in college, I took a course in Chinese popular religion, which is kind of a combination of Taoism, Confucianism, and Buddhism, and then learned a bit about meditation in that course. And then, and liked the Buddhist part so much, I took another semester course in Zen Buddhism with the same professor. So that was the first time I learned to meditate. I can still remember the first time the first time I did a guided meditation, and it really kind of shocked me that I'd never just sat and deliberately observed what's happening in my own mind. Even my parents are both in the mental health professionals, both clinical social workers who are doing therapy. So I grew up, around the mental health field, but largely they're addressing problems that people are having in their lives, like marital problems or addiction or depression or mental health, mental illness, basically, and then how different mental ill health leads to life problems, but they do through therapy, right? And then also, when I was a teenager, I experimented with drugs and psychedelics a little bit. And then so, that naturally makes you wonder, like, well, how my perception of the world, like, what's real and what's not, and what is real and what's not. Because your perception changes, a lot under the influence of drugs. And so it's a bit eye-opening, but it's very unstructured. It's just kind of a free-for-all. So sometimes it's beneficial and sometimes it's not, right? More often than not, probably. But then, to do meditation for the first time, I was just struck by, how fascinating it is to sit and just be more aware of our own experience, take our own experience as an object of focus, and how, in a way, useful, how useful it is. And then so for myself, that was my second year in college, and then I liked doing meditation so much. Then with a group of classmates, then we started doing a little like little Zen meditation in college. And then, but my third year in college, the junior year, this is common in the U.S. You study abroad, and I very much wanted to do that. I was already paying a lot, so I thought, well, why not pay a lot to go, study and see someplace cool in the world. So I spent a semester in Java in Indonesia, first semester, and then went to Australia for a second semester. But that semester in Java was the first time I was really away from the United States, out of the United States, and in a totally different culture, and in a place where like people didn't speak English, almost no one spoke English, and the food was very foreign to me, and it was very hot and humid. I mean, people complain about being hot on a day like this, but at least here it's dry and hot. Like it's bearable. Java, it's like fully humid and really hot, and not many screens on the windows, so there's mosquitoes. You have to burn mosquito coils, and it's just everything's different, right? And I was all alone, no, peers, and it was quite tough for the first few months. I felt unhappy. But then I found meditation, just to be able to sit on my bed and watch my breath. It was so helpful. It was really kind of a lifesaver in a way, just to be able to, kind of come back, find some peace of mind, feel kind of centered, and sort of have a broader perspective on everything that's happening to me, and be able to put it all in perspective and approach it in a much more kind of constructive way, rather than just feeling like I don't like this and this is hard and this is not going well and that. So I found meditation like really helpful at a time that I really needed some help, basically. So that gave me a new, deeper appreciation for it. But then, it was always, I never really saw meditation as like a main thing I would do. Of course, that is kind of a main thing I do now as a monk. But what really changed my perspective on meditation was after a couple of years after I graduated from college, I was diagnosed with cancer, with testicular cancer. I was like must have been like 23. And then I had to do an operation and then chemotherapy for like 3 months, and then radiation therapy for another 3 months. My hair all fell out and I felt really weak and kind of decrepit and uncertain how long I'd be living, right? Of course. And you have cancer. And then meditation again was like, save the day. It was so incredibly helpful to have some basic familiarity with meditation and learn a bit more about meditation, different meditation techniques to kind of cope with all the different emotions and fear and the difficulty of being in that situation. So that's when I decided I started taking meditation much more seriously, right? Especially thinking about death and, what am I? What is life? These big questions. And then by the end of that experience, from the time I was diagnosed to the time I was in remission, I guess you can say, it lasted about 9 months. So by the end of that, I thought, I want to learn more about meditation and then teach to other people, right? Because it's so useful. So then that led me to come to Thailand and then Nepal and India, and then learn more about meditation. And gradually I ended up with the Tibetan community in Nepal and India, and then gradually I became ordained and spent 20 years there, which was not the plan when I first went. But when I learned how much there is to learn and how useful it all seems, then I just kept going. But I'm very happy to be back here in the U.S. now. And one of the things, that I want to do is like continue that with that intention that I had when I was recovering from cancer, was to teach meditation to other people. So that's kind of how I see, all the different courses I'm teaching, but especially one like this. So our plan for this course is basically we'll begin today by looking at the posture. What's the posture for meditation? And then thinking more about like what does it mean to meditate? What is meditation? And then some just initial kind of meditation, anapanasati, where you're observing the breath as an initial. And then we'll see how far we get. The next things to discuss are different types of meditation in general. And then practicing some other types of meditation, building on the technique from basically watching the breath to counting the breaths to maybe labeling different types of distraction, then looking at the different sort of mental activity we're doing while we meditate, where one is like mainly focusing on the object, but with a part of our attention also being aware of our own process of meditation and watching for distractions to potentially arise. When they do arise, how to deal with that. And then looking at the mind that meditates. What is the nature of this mind that meditates? And then other things about, like how to set up a meditation session, how to structure one's practice at home, from one meditation session to, when to meditate in a day, and then, all kind of other things. And of course, any questions that arise. So first of all, what we'll start with is actually doing a little meditation. So usually when we do a meditation session, there's at first we sit in the correct posture and then relax our body, relax our mind, and then we generate a positive motivation. We think, why am I doing this? What is it that I want to work towards achieving for myself as a person, and then for in relation to others, in terms of an activity that I do in the world that has an effect for myself and effect upon others. So we generate a positive motivation at the outset, and then we do the actual meditation session. And at the end, we end with like prayers. It's like dedication. We think of whatever positive energy we've created in that session, and then dedicate it at the end towards, again, what are our aims for ourselves, and then for as we are connected to others in the world. So to begin the session, then let's just sit in whatever posture is comfortable for now. Later on, I'll describe in more detail the posture. But for now, just sit in whatever way is comfortable, so that you can focus on your mind, focus your attention. And then briefly be aware of your body, especially any tension in any part of your body. You can take a few deep breaths if you like, but then just breathe naturally. And as you notice any tightness or tension or discomfort in your body, just mentally release it. Try to relax that part of your body. And feel yourself seated comfortably on your seat or your cushion, and how the gravity of the earth is pulling you down, holding you in place. And then as your body becomes relaxed and comfortable, then focus your attention more on your mind, your experience, your mental experience. And again, if there's any, just try to relax your mind as well. Try to let go of any thinking about the future, or dwelling on the past, or engaging in any sort of judgment or mental elaboration about the present. Just to try to kind of let every thought go, and just be aware in the present moment. Mm. So then to generate a positive motivation, basically we can just begin with the simple question, we ask ourselves, why am I here? Why am I participating in this session and this larger weekend course on meditation? What is it that I hope to achieve? And try to think, in a long-term way, not only achieve like specifically this weekend, but longer term in terms of my entire life or lives. What are my highest aims that I want to contribute towards for myself? And then also think in a very broad way. So think in a long-term way, and then also in a broad way, encompassing not only one's own aims, but also recognizing that we exist as part of a social fabric. We're connected with family and friends and peers, co-workers, and countless strangers we meet every day. We're part of social fabric of people and other beings, animals also in the world. So what would I like to contribute towards their welfare? So in that way, try to develop a positive motivation, a wholesome intention for yourself and for others in the world, and then connect it to, thinking how, by participating in this session and this course on meditation, how it can contribute, or how we hope it might contribute towards those aims. So think about that question, beginning with, what is it that I hope to achieve through my participation in this session, in this course? Okay, so then you can relax your attention. Mm. Yeah, so that's basically how we begin any session. And it's also a good way to begin the day. A regular Buddhist practitioner, at least in the Tibetan tradition, right? Or teaching within the Tibetan tradition, which of course comes from ancient India. But one feature that you find emphasized very strongly in this, actually the Tibetan tradition mainly comes from the Buddhist masters of ancient Nalanda University in India. But one thing you find emphasized strongly in this tradition is always considering our motivation. Why, whatever we're doing, what is our main reason for doing that? Why are we doing that? With the thinking being that, we should always have a good reason for whatever we're doing. We should have a good reason for doing it. And the more positive the reason is, the kind of higher our aspiration for ourselves, and also it's the more broadly it encompasses the welfare of not only ourselves, but the welfare of others. Then the more positive, then whatever action we do, the more positive it does. The more positive the intention or the motivation, then the more positive power that action has. So it's important to, in general, cultivate a positive motivation at the beginning of every day, but especially at the beginning of every Dharma practice, and then especially at the beginning of every meditation session. So yeah, we begin a meditation session generally like that, sitting in a comfortable posture, relaxing the body, and then gathering our attention inwards, and then generating positive motivation. Yeah, so maybe while we're on that, how to begin a meditation session, then I'll go over the posture. There's 7 main points of the meditation posture. Yeah. So the main points are the legs. How are the legs arranged? And then how are the hands? How are the hands placed in the lap? And then the shoulders, broad and open. And then the back and the torso being straight, erect. And then the eyes being our gaze kind of cast down at a 45-degree angle with the eyes half closed. And then the head slightly with the chin slightly tucked, the back of the neck slightly elongated. And then the mouth and teeth and tongue. Mouth and teeth in a natural position, and the tip of the tongue touching the roof of the mouth just behind our front teeth. So those are the 7. Let me make sure I got it right now. Legs, hands, shoulders, back, torso, head, eyes, and then the mouth and the tongue. Yeah, that's 7. So to go over those one by one, the legs, ideal actually is to sit what's called the full lotus posture. I don't know. I don't sit in it very much myself. I can if I pull my legs up. So that's where, I got there. If you do yoga or something, you're quite flexible, you can. That's where you have like the right leg. So the full lotus, there was full lotus posture and then half lotus posture, then regular like cross-legged posture. And then also you can, meditate sitting in a chair or some other way, laying down, walking. But full lotus posture is where you have your right foot on top of your left thigh and your left foot on top of your right thigh. It's a very stable posture, and your knees, because you form kind of a triangle where your 2 knees are touching and then your buttocks is touching the cushion. So it's a very low, kind of stable posture. Then if that's not comfortable, then you can also sit in half a lotus posture where you have one foot up on top of one thigh and the other tucked down. That's very common. And then the other is just, cross-legged posture where you have your 2 feet or ankles tucked under your legs. And then for many also that's not comfortable. So then it's also fine to sit in a chair. Or sit some other way. Some people like to tuck their, kind of sit on their knees, like with their 2 feet tucked back under themselves. The main point of the posture, the meditation posture, is to sit in a way that our body's comfortable for the duration of the meditation session. And we don't have to keep adjusting our body. So we basically don't have to pay much attention to our body. We can just let it rest. It's comfortable, it's resting, and it can stay still without needing to give much attention to making adjustments and so forth for the duration of our meditation session, however long that is. But also you want to sit in a way, sitting cross-legged and kind of with your back straight and so forth, so that you're balanced and energy can flow freely through your body, right? And that you're not like falling forwards or falling back or side to side, or you're not falling asleep also. So that's a danger. We fall asleep, and so forth. So the legs, and cross-legged or sitting in a chair. If you're sitting in a chair, of course, you also just want the legs to be stable. So it's good if the feet can be on the floor, not like swinging your legs or something. That would be a distraction. And then the next part of the posture, let's say the back and torso. So you should sit upright with the back straight. And one common mistake is we think, well, the back needs to be perfectly straight, right? So we sit in a way that's rigid, too rigid, which is not sustainable. If you sit very stiff, then you're straining the muscles, in your abdomen or your lower back, and then you become uncomfortable after a short time. and tired, right? So we want to sit, so we want to balance our back and our torso so that we're straight and upright, but we can also relax all the muscles, that are holding our torso upright in our chest, our abdomen, our lower back, middle back, upper back. So the way to do that, to find that balance, so it's kind of like these days, I don't know, you see it's kind of common in vogue again, is balancing stones on top of each other. There's a name for that, I'm sure, but what's it called? Like a cairn, like a cairn, but balancing stones on top of each other. So you think of like your vertebrae or the parts of your torso as like that. And so the way you balance a stone, of course, is you have to, rock it back and forth until you find the point where it's just perfectly balanced, and then it'll stay. Even it looks like it wouldn't, it will, because gravity, there's a line of gravity going directly to the center of the earth that's going through it and holding it in place, right? Even though the point of balance on a stone, like a round stone, is very small. So like that, to find a balance, it helps to rock back and forth at the beginning, to rock our torso, just slightly forward till you can feel gravity's pulling you forward, and then go back, then go a little bit beyond the point of gravity. You can feel, the point of balance, you can feel gravity's pulling you back, and then kind of narrow. Like in kids in school, sometimes we'll mess around in the classroom and we're trying to balance a pencil on the eraser or something. It's like that. You have to be have very delicate touch until find the place where it stays. No. So you have to be like that with our own torso. No. Kind of rocking front and back and then side to side and find that point where you're balanced. At first it takes a bit of time, but as you meditate more and more, you get used to and you can find quite quickly. And then once you find that point, you can kind of let go and just, your body will stay there. Some people find helpful the analogy of like imagining sort of a, like a hook at the crown of your head, and then a golden thread hanging from the sky that's tied to it. And so your body's just hanging straight down from this thread. So the idea is the same, like gravity pulls that straight down. Okay, so there's the legs and then torso upright. And then the shoulders broad and open. It can help to kind of, pull your shoulders back at the beginning, because we want to open up the chest so that we can breathe very freely, right? If our shoulders are hunched forward, we hold a lot of tension, and then it also, it compresses, the lungs, right? So, I want the shoulders to be balanced and broad and open, so the chest is open. Feels more relaxed. But then just let the shoulders rest in whatever position is natural and comfortable. So that's 3 points so far, right? The legs, the torso, and the shoulders. Then the fourth is the hands. So a default kind of meditation posture is with the right hand on top of the left, and then the tips of the thumbs touching to make a triangle or like an oval. And then the rest of the hands in your lap. Just in front of your navel. And sometimes it depends how your legs are arranged in your lap. Sometimes that doesn't feel comfortable. It can help to have a little towel, like a hand towel, on your ankle or your legs to rest the hands on. But many people, and you see pictures of people meditating often like their hands like this on their knees. That's not really from the Buddhist tradition. Or sometimes it can be more comfortable to have your hands like on your, palm down on your knees. It's a bit more stable. So those are okay also. The reason for this posture is it's just considered, I'm not sure. It's considered the best for meditation. I think it kind of, it's like it brings your energy to your center. And then also by having the tips of the thumbs touching, it becomes kind of like an alarm, no? So if you start falling asleep, they'll fall, your thumbs will fall down, and you can help you notice that if you're becoming drowsy or kind of, sluggish, kind of losing your awareness in the present moment. So that kind of holding the thumbs up and the tips slightly touching is sort of helps us remember to be, mindful in the present moment. Probably it also has something to do with the energy flow in our bodies, although I'm not exactly sure what. But like I said, we don't have to. It's good to try that. But, sometimes if you prefer, if it feels more comfortable, have one hand, the palm down on your knee and one hand in your lap, or vice versa, or both hands on your knees. That's also okay, no? There's no hard and fast rules here. Like I said, it's important to remember the main point of the posture is that we can sit in a way that's comfortable, and we don't have to give much attention to our body for the duration of the meditation session, right? We can sit comfortably. Okay, so that's 4 points: the legs, the torso, the shoulders, and the hands. So now we go more to the upper part of the body. So beginning with the head. So the head, we don't want our head like falling back or falling forwards. So again, just like our torso, we want to be balanced. We also want our head to be balanced on top of our body, right? So it can help to just tuck the chin in slightly and slightly elongate the back of the neck. But find a position where the head is just comfortably balanced on top of the body. And again, we don't have to make adjustments. In general, to meditate and feel comfortable while we're meditating, it's really helpful to do a little exercise first. Generally, it's helpful to be kind of fit, but also especially to do some stretches, to stretch. On like YouTube or something, you can find people teach specific yoga postures, asanas, and stretches to make it more comfortable and meditate. But even as I do like the head, I'm thinking, usually when I meditate in the morning, I do a few like this, roll the head around, stretch the neck, a few times one way, then a few times the other way, whatever. And then kind of loosen things up so you feel just comfortable and a bit like loose. That's good. If the body feels comfortable, the mind's naturally going to feel more relaxed and comfortable, and it's easier to meditate. And then the eyes. Next is the eyes. The eyes, oftentimes, the default, there's a default position and then things to do with the eyes depending on how we feel, right? So the default position is to just relax. Oftentimes we hold tension in the brow and then in the muscles around the eye and the cheeks. So at the beginning, when we first sit in the posture, it's good to, those places in our body where we know we hold tension, for some it could be the belly, for a lot it's like the base of the neck and the shoulders, to especially be mindful of those places in the body and as you exhale, imagine any tension flowing out. But with the eyes, because the default position is to be half closed, which means basically you relax the muscles around the eyes and let the eyelids just kind of fall shut a little bit. But the reason it's recommended typically not to close your eyes while we're meditating is because there is a big danger we become drowsy and we drift off to sleep. And then, so thereby, the mental focus becomes kind of clouded and unclear, sort of dark. So to just relax the eyelids and let them fall half shut, but to, keep them open enough that there's some light coming in. That light coming in helps us to stay awake and alert. And then that's one reason. Then a second reason is that for keeping the eyes half open, a second reason is that, if we always meditate with our eyes closed, then there's a stronger feeling that the space of meditation is something totally removed from the external world that I see every day. It's purely an internal space. And so it's easy to have more sense of like duality between my everyday real kind of life and the external world I'm involved in and this internal world of meditation. Whereas the point of meditation is what we do in meditation contributes to a better quality of life in every aspect of our life, right? So we want this kind of our experience of meditation to be connected with our ordinary experience in day-to-day life, right? And so if we become accustomed to meditating while still, with our eyes open to some degree, then it's easier to make that connection between, whatever we do, the kind of the positive state of mind that we generate in a meditation session, to connect that with, the things I do when I get up from the meditation seat, with cleaning or cooking, or speaking with people, or going to work, or going out, outside the home into public spaces. So, in the long-term goal is to make everything we do in life part of, kind of a constructive experience, right? And so sitting and trying to generate like a positive state of mind in meditation session, whether it's just a more centered and balanced and peaceful state of mind, or whether it's generating, other positive states of mind, like loving kindness, or patience, or gratitude. But whatever positive state of mind we generate in the meditation session, we want it to be part of every aspect of our daily life. And so to even though it's a bit more difficult to meditate with the eyes open rather than closed, it's good to work on. That said, sometimes, like when we're in a situation like we are now, we're sitting in a place we're not used to being in, that we're new to. There's other people in the room around us. If we're in a place where if we keep our eyes open, we feel very easily distracted. Then it's okay to close the eyes, as long as there's not a danger we go to sleep, right? So again, the reason for not having the eyes closed is, one, we feel more cut off, and then two, we feel more separate from the ordinary world that we're in, and then two, there's a danger we fall asleep. So also sometimes when our mind is just really racing, and we're having trouble just quieting our mind down, it definitely helps to just close the eyes for a while, right, as you meditate, and that's okay. And then on the other extreme, sometimes when we're beginning to meditate and we feel like even we have our eyes half closed, it's like we just want to go off to sleep. We feel really, the mind feels really kind of sluggish, right? Then it helps to open the eyes fully, and just like look up, look a little high, look up towards the ceiling or up, and let full light in. And that helps to kind of pick up, refresh, and wake the mind up a little bit. And then once you do that, for a few seconds or a minute or so, then you lower your gaze and then see if the mind is a bit more fresh, and you can continue. So again, the default position of the eyes is to relax, let the eyelids half close, and then direct one's gaze at about a 45-degree angle towards the ground or the table in front of you. But then when in this tradition, when you meditate, we're not looking at anything with the eyes. It's not like we're focusing, visually focusing on a point on the ground or on the desk in front of us, but rather you sort of withdraw the focus of your gaze. Or one way to say it is that you just don't focus on anything. You're not looking at anything with your eyes. You're letting your vision be unfocused. So letting kind of light and things appear, but let everything just be like peripheral vision. And that becomes quite natural. As I'm talking and thinking about the eyes and our vision, it feels a bit unnatural. But as you turn your attention inwards and observe your breath, or reflect on other things in your life, then clearly the focus, our mental focus, is inwards, and it becomes very natural just to not pay attention to what's appearing in our visual field as we meditate. And then, of course, typically we meditate, when we meditate at home, we're sitting in the same place every day. You have a meditation seat or cushion at home, and you sit there every day. So there's the same thing appearing to you. So it very quickly becomes totally like not interesting. There's nothing to look at. Okay, so the eyes is the head is the fifth, the eyes is the sixth point, and then the final is the mouth and teeth and the tongue. So the mouth and lips, the teeth and the lips, you just let rest in whatever feels like a natural position, right? And then it's recommended that with the tip of your tongue, you just gently touch or press against the gums or the roof of the mouth just behind your front teeth. That's probably one of the most unnatural seeming parts of the posture. The reason given for that is that it helps to prevent our mouth from drying out. And then, for most of us, it's not really an issue, but if we attain very deep states of meditative absorption, then it can be that saliva can come out of the mouth, so that also prevents that from happening. But yeah, if that's really not comfortable, it's not a very important part, essential part of the meditation posture. Okay, so I'll just review quickly. So it's the 7 points again are the legs, the torso being straight, erect, shoulders broad and open, the hands in the lap, the right hand on top of the left, the tips of the thumbs slightly touching, the head slightly, the chin slightly tucked, so the head straight, and then the eyes half closed, resting unfocused in space, and then the lips and teeth in a natural position, and the tip of the tongue touching the mouth, touching the roof of the mouth, just behind your front teeth. Yeah. So let's just sit like that in that posture for a minute or so. Okay, just going to relax your attention. So are there any questions about anything we've talked about or done so far? So at the beginning we generated positive motivation, talked about how to start a session with just relaxing the body, and then generating a positive motivation, and then I just went through the posture, the 7-point posture. Yes? Sure. I can repeat the question. Yeah. When in the day would you recommend to meditate, and for how long? Yeah. Very important. Generally in the morning. First thing in the morning is best, because at night we've been sleeping. I mean, assuming you sleep at night, right? Not in the day. If you work at night and sleep in the day, it'd be the other way around. But so at night when we sleep, then naturally our mind quiets down, right? Because we're not thinking and doing so many active things and having conversations and stuff. So while we sleep, our mind naturally quiets down. So when we wake up in the morning, our mind is the most clear. And so it's easiest to meditate and focus then. At the end of the day, it's also good to meditate at the end of the day, but it's more difficult to focus because our mind is full of all the information and experiences we've had during that day. And that, but yeah, that said, I mean, and then in the morning, it's best to meditate like before dawn, because the whole environment is quiet then, right? Everyone's asleep still, right? Everything's quite quiet. It's cool. And the air, I mean, you can feel the air is fresh. There's more chi, there's more energy in the air. The air is fresher. And it's just quiet outside. From the time the sun rises onwards, it's just the whole energy of the environment is more active. So it's more different. There's more noise and heat and things, so it's more difficult to focus. So before dawn is the best time. And then for how long to meditate? Yeah, typically what we're aiming for in a meditation session is to have a good quality of mental attention, a good quality of attention, right? Where we're focused in the way we want to be focused. So typically when we're new to meditation, it's more difficult to focus because we're not used to doing it, right? So we need to put more effort into maintaining a focused attention, for a period of time. So typically when we're new to meditation, it's better to make the session shorter. Like 10 minutes is very short, or 20 minutes, half hour. But people are different. Some people just naturally have a kind of affinity. It's quite easy to sit and focus for a long time. Other people, they have difficulty sitting still even for just a few minutes, right? People are very different. So it depends on your own disposition. But the thing to do is to know kind of the structure, sit in the posture, generate a positive motivation, then decide what's your object of meditation going to be for that session, and then decide for how long you want to meditate, right? So at the beginning, start with something short, and then if that seems to go quite well, you can try to extend. But then when you see that, maybe you extend to like 30 minutes, the main part of the session, but you can see after 15 or 20 minutes, like I start to be distracted a lot more. My mind is wandering off and thinking about other things, and I'm really not able to focus in the way I'd hoped I'd planned to. Then that's probably too long, right? And make the session shorter. So, but then, you then do that for a few months and you'll see, the quality in that short time, maybe 20 minutes, the quality becomes better and better and better. And then you can try gradually extending 25 minutes, 30 minutes, 35 minutes. That's the main advice for how to judge the length of the session. Yeah. Other questions?
So regarding the morning meditation, can it be a walking meditation or does it have to be a sitting meditation?
Can be walking meditation also, yeah. We'll come back to that when we discuss more like, well, what does it mean to meditate? Then we can meditate while we're doing anything, really. But definitely walking is a very good way to meditate. Yeah. Even, I don't know, I mean, in some Tibetan tradition, it's not so common, but in the Theravada tradition, it's very common to even, people doing a full-time meditation retreat to do 1 hour sitting and 1 hour walking. And one retreat I did in Thailand is based on a Burmese system, but walking. Even in the Tibetan monks, they do a lot of, probably a third of the time when they're doing their daily meditations, they're doing it walking up and down. Even Shakyamuni Buddha did that, Yeah. Any questions from online? The online students? No? Yes, Tommy.
I have been meditating with my eyes closed all the time. So now that I'm trying to keep them open, it seems to be distracting. And I'm just wondering if you have any suggestions as to how to, it's almost like I'm starting over because I'm so used to just having my eyes closed that, gazing downward. I'm more focused on that and not shutting my eyes than I am on the actual process of, I'm getting lost in that part of it.
How long has
So
it been since you tried meditating with your eyes partly open?
I've only tried maybe a dozen times, and I wind up closing them all
Uh-huh.
the time. and I do occasionally fall asleep. So,
Yeah, see? I told
so,
you.
so
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
a
trying.
dozen times I think is not enough for it to feel comfortable
Yeah,
yet.
yeah.
So I would try it, for a dozen or 2 dozen more times.
Okay.
And then, yeah, if you still really feel it's just really not comfortable, it's really a distraction, it's okay to just continue with your eyes closed. But even if you do continue mainly with your meditating with your eyes closed, I'd recommend, since you say you do fall asleep sometimes, try to generate a special kind of awareness of when sleepiness starts to arise. And then at those times, open your eyes for a little while, no? Or apply some of the antidotes to that mental sluggishness, like opening the eyes very wide and looking up, or you can meditate on a bright light, just even with your eyes closed. Just if you feel this kind of mental sluggishness and darkness, kind of, or physical sluggishness also, lethargy, then just visualize a very bright light, in front of you, and that can help refresh the mind. There's other antidotes, but those are two of the main ones. Yeah, other, Asha?
Thank you.
I have two small questions and one big question. Sorry.
Okay.
So
Three questions.
Sorry.
Okay. I'll take
And
out my
I've been
notepad
meditating
here
for
and
4 years.
Okay,
See?
I'm ready to note it down.
Yes, please. Same question as Tommy. I have been meditating with my eyes closed. I know I should be keeping them open, but I've been just delaying that later. So when I keep my eyes open, the eyelids are constantly fluttering. Do they stabilize?
I think so. I'm trying to remember when I was new to meditation. I do remember it being kind of uncomfortable to keep the eyelids open, and they do kind of seem like, yeah, they're not comfortable. A little too closed, a little too open. It's just not comfortable. And for me, it's stabilized. I mean, now it's very comfortable. But like I said, everyone's a little different. So, yeah. I think, I think the important thing is just remember the reasons why that's recommended. Especially that I find the more persuasive reason that His Holiness, I heard His Holiness Dalai Lama speak about actually, that it's in order to generate this kind of, to associate our meditative experience with our ordinary life and mix the two. That's a very important thing. I mean, I find, keeping the eyes a little bit open really helps with that. So then when you get up from the meditation cushion, it's not like you're in a whole different space. You open your eyes and you're in, but it's part of the same continuity of experience. But, if it's really uncomfortable, then also it's not necessary,
Yeah, maybe it's just matter of practice as well.
Maybe, yeah.
But then when the eyes are open, are your pupils looking down as well, or is your eyeball up and the pupils inside? So you're not looking at anything, it's just the light coming in.
Yeah, typically it's advised you cast your gaze at about a 45-degree angle. So you kind of start by looking, you can start by even looking at something down at about like this. But then, like I said, we're not looking at something while we're meditating, right? Kind of pull your gaze back so it's like kind of about here. It's kind of unfocused in space. So like me, like now I'm sitting here, I'm looking at, if I look down 45-degree angle, I see the keyboard of the laptop in front of me. For you, it's the same now. But then while we're meditating, you wouldn't be looking at that keyboard, right? If you pull your face, if you pull the focus of your gaze back, the keyboard still appears, but it's out of focus, right? So whatever is in front of you, it's kind of appearing out of focus. And it's also, it's interesting, it changes a little bit the quality of your attention because you can pull in some meditation manuals, Buddhist meditation manuals, it's recommended to focus on the tip of the nose. So that would be like you pull the focus of your gaze all the way back, like to here, right? But that tends to strain the eyes. So it's not so comfortable for a long time. But sometimes it is kind of interesting to see how far, pull the focus of the gaze back. It does kind of, you feel like it makes the focus of your attention go inwards a bit more even, versus letting your gaze extend out, especially if you're sitting like on a hillside or something and you have a lot of space in front of you. Let your gaze kind of extend out. It's also very nice, sometimes sit it in the grass. That's why I was talking with Casey and Bay earlier about, actually we're going to do part of the program here at OCBC, do some meditation outside. But it's a very nice experience. One big benefit of meditating outside is that everything's kind of moving in the environment. Like if you're meditating in grass or in trees or near water, the Buddha recommended, meditate near bodies of water. Because definitely those natural things in the environment, when we perceive them, they have an effect on us. And so when you sit outside, and what the difference is, when we sit in a man-made space like this, like nothing is changing. Like the floor is static, the wall is static, the ceiling is static. It's insulated, so the sound is kind of controlled somewhat. The temperature is controlled. There's no insects coming in. When you're outside, like you feel impermanence much more. It becomes much more of a visceral experience of impermanence, which is very helpful for meditation. So especially visually, when you do this, you kind of let your eyes open and then withdraw the focus of your gaze. You can still perceive all this movement in the environment around you. And that really, it really has it's kind of relaxing and makes you feel very much more connected, like your interdependence, your connectedness with the environment. Because every time you perceive something, it's becoming part of you, right? Anyway, your third question?
Yeah, my third big question is that I know we all are here. It's how to meditate. It's more about the technique of meditation and the types of meditations you will go through, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I dragged my 17-year-old to today's session at least, and he's probably thinking, why are we meditating? Why should we meditate? Is it just to relax ourselves, or is there a bigger purpose?
Aksha, is that what you're thinking? A little bit, yeah. We'll come to that. Yeah, we'll come to that. Why don't we take a break? Let's take a 10-minute break now, and then we'll come back. Okay, 10-minute break. Yeah, some of the when we in the context of the posture, one question that often comes up is, what do you do when like your leg hurts or something, or you have an itch, your nose itches or something like that? Then do you just sit there and try to bear it and ignore it, or do you do something to address it? Generally, it's good to try to because then another question comes up is what about other physical sensations? When we're meditating, sometimes very strange physical sensations can arise, all kinds of unusual sensations. Like I know, like one time, and it happened several times when I was meditating in Indonesia, I could swear I visited this Thai temple and met a monk there, and he gave me some basic instruction just to sit and watch my breath. And then I went to the meditation hall. I was the only one there, just sitting there meditating. And I think I sat probably for 45 minutes or an hour. And I could swear there was ants crawling on my back. And there was a whole trail of ants like going across my back. And I had this clear mental picture of exactly where they're crawling. And I could feel them like crawling, across my back. And then I went back and told the monk. And he said, "Oh, really? Was there ants in the hall?" As if but when I got up and looked, of course, there's nothing there. No, it's just like my imagination. And then sometimes, actually someone was asking me about this recently, sometimes you'll have a feeling where like, especially if your eyes are closed, where like your body feels really huge, like it feels the whole universe, or your body feels really, really tiny and the universe feels, or you feel really dark and like heavy and dense, or you can feel like you become really, really light and like air and just disappear. So there's strange kind of physical sensations that arise, and that's just par for the course. That's just normal. With those kind of things, the typical thing to do is, that's why it's so important at the beginning of the meditation session, and we'll talk more about this as we go along, but to decide what is your object of meditation. What are you going to meditate on? What do you want to focus your attention on for that? And keep coming back to that. And then the other like sensations like that, it's just one other type of distraction, right? Yes, it arises, it's fine. You don't have to like, wish it to go away or to stop. Let it just happen, unfold as it is. But don't let oneself be distracted by that. Try to keep your focus on, if you're focusing on the breath, just keep coming back to the breath as much as those other sensations arise. Try to stay focused on the breath. And gradually they quiet down and they go away. But then back to, what happens when your leg really hurts? Well, at first, when you just feel a little discomfort, if you can just, like other distractions, let it go. Just accept it and focus on your breath. But if the pain really grows and grows and grows such that you really can't focus anymore, then of course just shift your legs. Just move around a bit, and so it's comfortable. Or you might stop the meditation session and then stand up, walk around for a bit, and then sit down and meditate again. I know, like personally now, I used to be able to sit quite comfortably, for 2 hours or more. I could sit in half lotus one way, then shift my legs around, like with the right leg up and the left leg down. And then after an hour, shift and put my left leg up, the right leg down, and sit for, now I can't do that. No, I'm a bit older now, 20 years older. And I really, after sitting for 1 hour, it's like I have to, especially my right leg, I have to stretch it out. Actually, it's under the table here, and you probably can't tell, but I have to stretch it out. And so typically when I do my morning practice, I like sit cross-legged for 1 hour and then stretch both my legs out and do a little stretches, and then sit again for another hour. So yeah. But then something like, there's like a little itch on your nose. Again, if you can, just observe it. I mean, just stay focused on your object of meditation and just let it pass away. If it becomes more intense, you might want to, sometimes just try focusing on that. Dropping your main object of meditation for the time and just observing that sensation and seeing how it passes away. Or, if it's really irritating, just scratch it and then go back to your main meditation. It's no big deal. That's the main kind of advice for that. Okay, so we just have about 30 minutes left. Let's talk about now kind of what is meditation, and then maybe we can begin talking about why meditate. I think tomorrow I'll bring in some, because there's, some research about benefits, physical and mental benefits of meditation from the point of view of like neuroscience and psychology, or just general mainstream medicine and research. But for now, what is meditation? And then a bit why meditate. Well, first of all, I want to make the point that although Buddhism is being well known as a resource for very clear instruction on meditation, meditation is not exclusively a Buddhist activity, like at all. It's very helpful to remember. Buddhism, meditation is just a human activity. It's something humans have been doing long before Buddhism ever arose, and maybe long before even organized religion arose. I'm not sure. When anatomically modern humans is said to have arisen about 250,000, 300,000 years ago. So at what point did they start meditating? It's an interesting question. How would the first people have started, meditating? Which relates very much to, well, what does it mean to meditate? What is meditation? But definitely, looking at more recent history, of course, in terms of Buddhism, like Prince Siddhartha or Gautama Buddha, he learned how to meditate as a child before he ever taught Buddhism, because meditation is part of Indian culture, ancient Indian culture, in Hindu tradition and Jain, and just kind of it's a rich part of Indian culture. Especially for me, I find very interesting as a student of philosophy. I studied Western philosophy in college. And then you compare like Eastern philosophy to Western philosophy. One big difference you see, which I think really influenced the way the philosophies are shaped is in Eastern philosophy, especially in ancient India, like philosophical thinking was always combined with meditation practice, where people learn to focus their attention, right? So the ideas about like what the person is, what's possible to do with a human life, I think are very much shaped by, deep experiences of deep concentration, concentrating the attention, and then having quite experiences of oneself as a person, experiences of the world that are very different than what we can have by just an ordinary level of attention and just intellectualizing and thinking about things. Whereas Western philosophy never really, maybe ancient Greeks, there's a story about Socrates once coming back from battle and like suddenly stopping in the middle of the road and standing, I think, on one leg for 24 hours, just like stopping in the middle of the road and thinking deeply about something. So of course, deep thinking is there in Western philosophy, but I think there was never this practice of sitting and deliberately trying to generate very, very refined mental focus. It never arose in Western culture, to my knowledge. Although of course there are like Christian mystics, some who, the Christian mystics, meditating clearly and generating quite deep levels of concentration, it seems, but it never became like part of mainstream culture as it did, or mainstream sort of philosophy, I guess, as it did in the East. But what is meditation? So, okay, first of all, it's a universal human practice. So to meditate, it doesn't mean we don't have to accept any kind of religious beliefs. We don't have to be on a spiritual path. It can be something we do just to relax, to gain more control over different aspects of our life, our actions, our emotions, just to be able to think more clearly. Anything that we have to do with our mind, if we practice meditation, it's like a way of exercising different faculties, mental faculties that we have. The ability to focus on one object, the ability to focus in the course of thinking about a set of questions or an issue, and thereby the ability to reason clearly. And so it helps all different aspects of our life, Okay, so it's a universal human activity, and it's something we can do in a secular context, independent of religion or spiritual, or it's something we can do as part of a spiritual path or part of a religious practice, either one. And it's common to many spiritual traditions now, in Christianity and Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, all the different spiritual traditions have aspects of meditative practice, or contemplative practice is a broader term for those body of activities. So, but from a Buddhist perspective, like, how do we define what meditation is? Well, one common misnomer is that meditation just means emptying the mind of anything, just not thinking about anything, abiding in a state of just not thinking about anything, making the mind blank. And that, even in some strains of Buddhist tradition, you do find that as a practice, like emptying the mind as a practice. Although in the Tibetan tradition, as it's inherited from the masters of ancient Nalanda monastery, especially Shantarakshita, Kamalashila. Actually, there's one of the last great Indian masters, Kamalashila. He very vociferously refuted this view that the quickest way to enlightenment is to just stop all thought, put a stop to all thinking. And so maybe the reason that some say the quickest way to enlightenment is to stop all thought is based on the idea that, well, because the pure nature of the mind, I guess, is like, has a potential for full enlightenment, has a potential for infinite knowing and experience. And what impedes that pure blissful potential of the mind is our own kind of garbage thinking, our own discursive thinking about this, thinking about that. This is good. This is bad. I like this. I don't like this. That's them. This is me. All this kind of dualistic ways of thinking, which is true. That does cause a lot of confusion and clutter, and it's exhausting. I mean, any of us who've been, worried about something, like suddenly your flight is canceled and you have to figure out, like, what am I going to do? It exhausts you quickly, especially the more variables that there are that you can't really predict or account for. It just becomes exhausting to think about, like, a lot of stuff. Or emotional turmoil also, when we have a big argument with a family member, or in a romantic relationship, and there's all this emotions just like flowing around. It's exhausting, right? So we can see that there's a lot of attractiveness to just making the mind blank, because it's much more relaxing than the mind being so full of stuff, in a disturbing way. But also there's this kind of line of thought that, well, it's because all that discursive thought and emotional clutter that impedes the natural luminosity and clarity of the mind. So just to clear all that away is the quickest way to actualize our potential for infinite clarity and joy. And there's some truth to that. But Kamalashila's argument, which is embraced by the Tibetans, is that, just stopping thought is kind of like throwing the baby out with the bathwater, because every way of thinking and feeling is not necessarily disturbing, right? Some ways of thinking, it's true, they are confusing and counterproductive, and just cause us fear and worry and anxiety. But some ways of thinking, they bring us insight. The truth becomes more known to us and more clear to us. And so there are very constructive ways of thinking. So if we just throw out thinking altogether, we really undermine our ability to make progress on the path towards, full understanding and towards, becoming a better person. And the same with emotion, right? If we just throw out all emotional experience together, yes, we get rid of the kind of the unpleasant emotions, but then it also undermines our ability to really harness the power of very positive emotions like gratitude and love and caring and compassion, right? Which can be powerfully propel us on the spiritual path, right? So Kamalashila's argument is that, we don't need to get rid of thinking. We need to learn to discriminate between constructive thoughts, this is this side, right? Constructive ways of thinking and feeling, and destructive ways of thinking, and reduce the one, increase the other. And then also is that part of that argument also is that the fundamental cause of suffering is actually not just the fundamental cause of suffering is a misapprehension. It's a mistaken way of thinking about things, a mistaken way of thinking about things, and thereby a mistaken way of perceiving things. It becomes habituated. And so to undo this fundamental ignorance, which is the root of suffering, it requires wisdom. It requires a correct understanding. And so if you just throw out like thinking altogether, you undermine your ability to generate this correct understanding and insight, which is the antidote to the ultimate cause of suffering. So while not thinking is a temporary relief from that ignorance, it's not an ultimate antidote, because we're so habituated to this fundamental way of misunderstanding the way we and others exist that it comes up again and again and again until you generate wisdom which cuts through it, right? Okay, anyway, that's a bit more beyond the question, but it's all related to this common misconception that we find, especially nowadays, but it's an old one now, that meditation just means to not think about anything, right? So yes, that can be one technique of meditation, and definitely is. Actually, we'll do that later in this course, called bare awareness, where we just try to not think about anything and rather just be aware in the present moment. But that's just one technique. That's all different types of meditation are not that, right? So when we talk about what is meditation, we need a description that encompasses the whole variety of meditative practices that are all included in meditation. Yeah. And then another argument against that is because, even animals can just sit and not think about anything, You see a spider sitting in a web all day, or a frog, sitting in the edge of the pond or something. It's probably not thinking, but it's also not doing something especially constructive. No, it's just, that's what it does by instinct. Also, while we're asleep, if not thinking is meditating, then while we're in deep sleep, that would all be meditation, but clearly that's not, right? Yeah. So meditation is not just making the mind blank. So then we might think, well, meditation then maybe it means just focusing our attention on something, just our attention being focused on something. But then we can think of other examples that we have in life where our attention is very focused on something, but we wouldn't call it meditation. Like, again, you're very irritated about something. You had some conversation with someone that was, that you're irritated about something they said, and we can be very focused on that. But that's not meditation, right? Or we're very, enamored with some person or something that happened. We feel very attracted to that. And so our attention can be very one-pointedly focused on that, but that's not meditation. It's through the power of just certain powerful emotions we have in relation to something that our attention becomes focused. Like different emotions focus our attention in different ways. Or we might be doing, trying to do problem solving, trying to solve a problem, or reading like a mystery novel or something, and there's some burning question that we really want to solve, And that can cause our attention to become very focused, but that's not meditation, right? So then what's the difference with meditation? I think we can describe, a good description of meditation is where one aspect is when we meditate, it's like we're deliberately focusing our meditation. Like we're deliberately focusing our attention. It's like we sit down we can be walking or sitting, but whatever, but we're like making a block of time where we're deciding, like, I'm going to try to focus my attention in this way. It could just be watching the breath. It could be trying to generate a positive mental state, like loving kindness. It could be thinking about a question, like, what happens after I die, or something like that. So there's all different, things we can focus on, but in all of them, we're deliberately letting go of other things that we ordinarily think about and pay attention to, and focusing our attention on an object of meditation. And we're doing so with a motivation to generate some benefit, right? Problem solving could be involved, but we're doing so with a positive motivation, to achieve some good for myself or others, in the short term and the long term. So we have with a positive motivation, then we focus our attention on, a specific object, a clearly defined object for a certain length of time. And then we do so again and again and again, repeatedly. We repeat that as an exercise to improve and to become better at it, again and again. So in the word for meditation in Tibetan is gom. And gom also has the connotation of to become familiar with, to habituate oneself to something. So even like meditating on the breath, it's something, we can see when we do it at first, we're not very good at it because, we haven't practiced. But we do again and again and again, and we become better and better and better. We gain proficiency at it. As we become more familiar with that activity, more habituated to that activity. So another, on the one hand, the meditation has the connotation of doing something regularly, repeatedly, again and again, and thereby becoming familiar with it, and also becoming habituated to that. So a big part of meditation is like the kind of awareness. We generate a more kind of refined, sensitive awareness as we meditate. We become more aware of our own thoughts and feelings, and thereby we become more aware of the thoughts and feelings of others. So we become more in tune with ourselves, more in tune with others. And that becomes becomes second nature. If we meditate regularly over a period of time, say 6 months, a year, it's like we generate a sort of state of awareness, a heightened state of awareness that we become habituated to. It's something that we experience just all the time in everything we're doing, whether alone or we're with other people, and it becomes part of who we are. So again, that's the point of meditation, is not just to have some kind of specific experience during the meditation session, but to improve the quality with which we experience anything in life, right? And also death, right? To have an improved experience, in life and also through death, and then into future lives as well, right? So in short, in sum, then what is meditation? Essentially, it's with a virtuous motivation, a wholesome intention, deliberately focusing our attention on an object again and again and again, in order to become more familiar with that, not only that object, but that state of being, you could say. So basically, that's what meditation is. So as the part of meditation, it's not necessary then to sit. It is easier to sit in the meditation posture, because, like I said, the purpose is that our body can be comfortable, and we're not distracted by it, right? So if we're going to meditate for 30 minutes, then we can just sit comfortably for 30 minutes, and we have to give a minimal amount of attention to our body. At the beginning, we adjust and get in our posture, and then we can just relax and then focus on our mind. And then here's another aspect. Meditation is not something we do with our sense consciousness. It's something we do with our mental consciousness. So what our sense consciousness is, like our eyes. We have 5, eye sense consciousness, ear sense consciousness, and then nose, tongue, and body sense consciousness. So those consciousness with which we experience visual phenomena, as our eye sense consciousness, we see things with the eyes. We hear sounds with our ear sense consciousness. We experience sense with our nose, taste with our tongue sense consciousness, and then physical sensations like hot and cold, smooth and rough, and so forth with our body sense consciousness. So, but when we meditate, we're basically, withdrawing our attention away from our 5 sense consciousness and focusing on our mental consciousness. So when we say mental consciousness, what do we mean? Like, I don't know, just close your eyes and remember something right now that happened in the past, near past or distant past. So that memory is a mental consciousness. That's a very clear example of a mental consciousness. You can see that memory is not something we experience with our eyes, ears, nose, tongue, or body. Right? It's not something that appears to one of our sense consciousness. It appears only to our mind. Right? So that's a mental consciousness. So whenever we're thinking about the future, it's a mental consciousness. When we're thinking about the past, when we're making judgment statements like this is good, this is bad, I like this, I don't like this, that's all mental consciousness. When we're doing reasoning, like we're doing problem solving in math, or reading a book and imagining, understanding the meaning of the words, that's all mental consciousness. So when we meditate, it's helpful to recognize we're using our mental consciousness, not our sense consciousness. So of course, while we meditate, we see things, we hear things, we feel things with our body. We might taste things or smell things in the environment, right? But that's never the focus of our attention in meditation. It's always an object of mental consciousness that we're focusing on. Why don't we do that? Before we open up the floor to questions or comments, let's do just 5 minutes of meditation. So just get comfortable in your posture briefly, and then gradually draw your awareness within. And yeah, breathe naturally and direct your awareness towards your breath, at your breath. So try to just become aware of the process of breathing. So just breathe naturally and observe, as you feel you inhale, and you draw the cooler air from outside in through your nose or mouth, down through your esophagus, into your upper lungs, mid-lung, and lower lungs. You feel your abdomen rise. And then inhalation, and there's a pause, and then you turn to exhalation. And then the kind of warmer, moister air flows out from your lungs, your abdomen sinks, comes out through your esophagus, out through your nose and mouth into the environment again. So just observe that process of inhalation, exhalation, and try to make that the focus of your attention for, let's say, a few minutes, 3 minutes. Mm. And then finally, for a minute or two, just reflect on this description of what meditation is. It's something we do with a positive intention. We deliberately focus our attention on an object of meditation. And then we focus on that again and again and again. And we do so with the mental consciousness, not with the sense consciousness. And thereby we become familiarized. We familiarize ourselves with that state of attention. So does that make sense, or any questions arise regarding that? Okay, relax your attention. Yeah, if there's any, there's a few questions. We have a little bit of time still about meditation in general. What is meditation? You all feel like, I hope you'll do a meditation session tomorrow morning before you come. Yes, she has a question. Gupi?
Gitu. So I had a question regarding mindfulness versus meditation, and if mindfulness is just a form of meditation. To me, mindfulness is when, I'm in my thoughts and I suddenly, make myself notice things around me and how I'm feeling, how I'm thinking. That's mindfulness to me, but it may be something different.
Yeah, I mean, that word mindfulness is used in many different ways, especially these days. It's used, to mean many different things. It can mean exactly what you're talking about. And that can be a kind of meditation, to be more, deliberately be more aware of just whatever you're thinking and feeling. Mindfulness can also have a bit more narrow, like technical meaning. It's used to translate some Tibetan word out, which I'll talk about tomorrow. But yeah, there's a whole field of meditation called mindfulness meditation, like popularized by like Jack Kornfield, I think, and Spirit Rock, and especially just stress reduction, mindfulness-based stress reduction, mindfulness MBSR, which is been used very successfully to help people reduce stress and deal with pain in the medical setting. But I would say in general, like in the context of meditation, like mindfulness and meditation, it can be one aspect of like the method of meditation, which we'll talk more about tomorrow. I'll talk about what I mean by that. But it's also like one just style of meditation, where you're not trying to like think about anything, but you're just trying to be more aware of your own experience, like in the present moment, kind of thing. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. Yes, Steve, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Very good memory.
I heard you tell Bay in the break.
Yeah, just so when do the meditation, would you recommend like a guided meditation, someone like a guide you, always talking, or music, or just purely nothing?
When you're new to meditation?
Yeah.
A good question, yeah. It definitely helps to do like some guided meditation, kind of like what I'll lead you through in here. And there's also a lot on the internet these days. But you want to be careful, because ultimately we want to be able to meditate on our own, right? Without listening to anyone's guidance. And the problem with guided meditation is basically we're listening. We have to keep listening to what they're saying, and we're kind of following their train of thought, Whereas really what we want to be able to do as we meditate, we'll come back to this tomorrow, but there's a big part of meditation is not only like focusing our attention on one object like our breath, but generating some mental focus, and then using that space of a focused mind to think about things that are important to us, things that are happening in our lives, no, and big important questions for us. And so we'll see as we do that kind of meditation, but we need to be able to learn to be comfortable in a space where we're free to think about what we need to think about, right? And that only we can know. No one else can know that. So if we always do guided meditation where we're listening to someone, it's like it kind of doesn't really give us the space to follow our own needs in terms of what we need to work with in our own emotions and our own mind. So and then music is just a distraction. And music, it can help. I mean, you feel good, but serious meditators, they don't listen to music while they meditate. They just in silence now. So music is just it's just distracting it's like distracting awareness outwards, right? Because the music is outside us. So we need to, and meditation is about bringing our awareness within, and then looking at our own mind, right? And so, music is kind of distracting from that. So, but then also we do need, it is helpful to have some input, some wisdom. It can be helpful to read things that, talk about whatever issues we're working with in our mind. So it can be helpful, to have some verses or have a book, and then read a little bit and then meditate on that, right? And that's very helpful. Yeah. Okay, that's all for our time tonight. I want to stop. Okay, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I was going to ask,
No
does a mantra meditation or transcendental meditation also have same approach to meditation itself? Or is this more of a marketing, or is this more of a truly mystic experience to go that deep apparently if you're doing a mantra, touching to some consciousness, or the way it's described always, it's so mystic and marketing oriented that I'm just wondering what's your take on it.
Was it TM, no? Transcendental meditation, the technique and movement, I don't know much about. No, I've never studied that. But in Buddhism also, like in Hinduism, also there is use of mantra for meditation. And there's no question that, mantras, repeating the certain set of syllables or sound, or phrase again and again. On the one hand, usually we say the main effect is that the mantra has a meaning. And so as you recite that, you reflect on the meaning of those words. But it's no question like the certain frequency of those syllables and the vibration and the way it interacts with your own prana in your body, it does have an effect also. And then, of course, in Buddhism, there's a whole idea that different mantras are associated with different enlightened beings. And so they made prayers. They kind of blessed that mantra such that whoever says that, it has a certain effect on them. Like there's a mantra of compassion. It's on the front of this laptop I keep seeing. Om Mani Padme Hum. I don't know. Anyway, but it's associated with the Buddha of compassion. The second one over here, the white Buddha. Between the lotus. And so I've had personal experience of reciting that mantra a lot, like in a retreat, and it really seems to make the mind the heart kind of open and soft and more compassionate. But that could be a little bit also placebo effect. I don't know. If you believe it's going to happen, then it happens sometimes, right? So, but there is that in Buddhism also, but it's not a major focus, no? It's kind of a side thing. In the TM, they do seem to market it quite well, but it's lasted a long time and must be affecting people, or maybe beneficial to some people somehow. So I don't know much about it. Okay, rest of the questions for tomorrow. Let's just dedicate very briefly. So thinking that whatever positive energy we've generated through this session, may it contribute towards peace and happiness in our own minds and in our lives, for oneself, for all the others in the Course, and then for all those in our families, our friends, all those people we're connected with, directly and indirectly. And then for the world at large, the world at large could really use, more peace, happiness, harmony in the minds of individuals and between individuals, communities, between nations. So whatever we've done here tonight may contribute to all of that. And then bring to mind any other prayers you'd like to make. Just bring them to mind. Anyone who's sick or recently passed away or facing other, challenges in their life. So may all those virtuous prayers of yours be accomplished in accordance with your wish, and then may this Dharma Center Ocean of Compassion be free of every obstacle and have every conducive condition to offering programs like this and many others to countless sentient beings. And may all, spiritual traditions and practitioners who bring a benefit to the world, may they flourish. Okay, thank you. And I hope you can meditate tomorrow morning, maybe before the next session. But in general, this weekend it's a bit of we'll learn about a lot of different meditations, and then you can use and techniques you use in the coming time. And like I said, if you haven't registered, then please make sure we have your email address so we can send out some handouts and materials. Okay. Good night. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Geshe-la.
Thank you.
And we start tomorrow at 10:30.